In this video, I'll show you how to disassemble and clean your DY9 magazine, walk you through installing a +2 floor plate, and show you how to switch the magazine release button for left-handed use. To do this the way I show in the video, you'll need the following items: alcohol pads, and if you don't have these, you could always use rubbing alcohol on a cotton pad, heavy-duty paper towels, also known as mechanics paper towels, and I cut mine up in 2 different sizes. Cleaning stick, this one has a flat side and a pointy side. If you don't have one of these, you could always use a pistol cleaning rod, 3mm punch, 90-degree pick, and a small flathead screwdriver. And the last item is optional, and that's rubber gloves. I wear rubber gloves because it's not healthy to have the fouling or the lead that's coming off of the magazine onto your skin and absorbing it. So the first thing we're going to do is pick up our magazine, turn it upside down, grab the punch. We're going to take this part of the punch, put it into this circle area right here, and then we're going to compress downward. Push in, you can hear it compressing. Take your thumb and you're going to push the floor plate this way, like that. You can remove the punch once you notice that the floor plate is moving in this direction. And then you slide it off, keeping your thumb over the bottom of the magazine, so this way that spring and the locking plate don't come flying out. Take this, set this aside, put down our 3mm punch. Now we can slowly decompress the spring and remove the locking plate. Set that aside, pull the spring and the follower out, set that aside. Now the first thing I usually do is I take one of the bigger pieces of paper towel and I just wipe off the outside. Spin it around, it doesn't have to be perfect, and that's it. So as you can see, there really wasn't much on this magazine. Next, I grab the cleaning stick and one of the small patches. And what I do is I wrap this around the cleaning stick and I just go on the inside and I wipe off the inside. As you can see, I'm getting all the sides. And I'm trying to get from here to here as much as possible. Pull it out. You can see there wasn't that much in there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in from the top. This part was already in the magazine. I'm putting this part in first now, like this. Put it in, and I'm just trying to concentrate on the top part around here because it's a little harder to reach from here. I'm just holding onto a piece of the paper towel against the stick so it just stays with the stick and it doesn't slide in. Go around, put it back in. And as you can see, there was a little more fouling near the top of the magazine. Set that aside. Now we're done cleaning the body of the magazine. We're going to set this aside. Now we're going to clean the follower and the spring. So we take one of our alcohol pads and we're just going to wipe off the follower. Next, I take the same alcohol pad and I'll wipe off right here, like this. And then once I get to this part right here, I just pretty much squeeze the alcohol pad around the spring. And then with this hand, I'm just rotating the spring around. And what that does, it just pushes the entire spring through the alcohol pad. There you go. You can see there was some fouling on there. Now it's nice and clean. We set this aside. We're going to let that dry off. Same thing with the locking plate. Just wipe this down. Doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to get the bulk. So this way that the magazine functions properly. Set this aside, let that dry. Same thing with the floor plate. Just wipe everything off on the inside. And wipe the outside too. Okay, set that aside. At this point, I let everything sit and dry off. Once it's dry, then I reassemble everything. Okay, so now you can see the follower is nice and dry, along with the floor plate and the locking plate. So now we can reassemble our magazine. How we're going to do that is grabbing the magazine body along with the spring and the follower. When you're looking at the magazine body, keep in mind the flat side with the witness holes and the numbers, that's going to be the rear. So when we look at the spring and the follower has an angle in it and it kind of points upward like this. The part that's the highest is the front and the lowest is obviously the rear. So it's going to look like this when you insert it. Okay, so the higher part should be pointed towards the front and the lower should be towards the back. So you're just going to insert it into the magazine like this and then just push it up until the follower hits the top. So the locking plate has two sides. The side right here with the bigger circle that sticks up higher, that's the side that faces the floor plate. And this side that has the tiny little circle that's sticking up but doesn't stick up that much right there, that side is going to be facing inside the magazine. Now the complete flat part goes to the rear, and then this part right here that's like kind of shaved off a little bit on the sides, that'll be facing the front of the magazine. So again, this is the rear of the magazine, so the flat part faces the rear, and then this side with the tiny little circle goes towards the spring, just like that. Okay, that's what it's going to look like. And what we're going to do is we're going to compress the spring and the locking plate, and we're going to put our thumb over it. The locking plate has to be inside the magazine. So now let me explain how the floor plate gets installed to the magazine. The straight part right here is the rear, and the roundish part is the front. When you look at the floor plate from the rear, you're going to notice that there's this opening right here and this opening right here. Those two openings slide onto the lips right here and here of the magazine. So we're going to set up our locking plate like I mentioned earlier, compress this in. Once the locking plate is below the body of the magazine, we take our floor plate and we take the rear and we start to slide that on to the lips that I was explaining earlier. But it slides on, and as I slide it back, I lift my thumb up and you hear that click. That means the locking plate is now locked into the floor plate. And you can see if I push on this, the floor plate won't come off. The other thing you can do is you can push down on the follower to make sure you have spring tension and that it moves up and down, and this one does. And that's how we can tell our magazine was reassembled correctly. So now if you purchase the +2 floor plate, I want to show you how to install that. Take our magazine and our 3mm punch. We're going to push this little circle in like that. Take our thumb, slide the floor plate off like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to remove this locking plate, set that aside. Your +2 comes with a different locking plate. When you look at your magazine, this is the front and this is the rear. When you look at the locking plate for the +2, you can see that this is the front and this is the rear. So what we have to do is we have to take the bottom of this spring, we're going to insert it into the locking plate like that. Make sure the spring is seated as far forward as possible inside the locking plate. So now we take that and we compress this in to the magazine body, just like this. Keep our thumb compressing the locking plate, and the locking plate has to be below this level of the magazine. Now we're going to take this opening right here and this opening right here. We're going to slide that onto this area right here and this area right here. And it's going to look like this. You can see the flat side is facing the rear of the magazine like this. We're going to slide that on, slowly removing our thumb, push it all the way back. You hear that click, and that means the locking plate went into place, and now you can't slide the floor plate off. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to swap the magazine release button from being on the left-hand side to the right-hand side. The reason why you would want to do this is, let's say you're left-handed it'll be easier to have the magazine release button on the right hand side so you could drop the magazine. And as you can see, I don't have the slide on. There's no slide and no magazine inside the grip. The orientation you're going to have the grip is the front will be facing away from you, the rear will be facing towards you, and we're going to rotate it upward so you can see inside this area right here. All right, so we take our 90-degree pick, we insert it into the mag well like this. When you look inside here, you're going to see this spring bar right here. That spring bar, what we have to do is we have to push that spring bar to the right. Once it's all the way to the right, we're going to pry it towards us. So it's going to look like this. Let's say my finger is the spring bar. We're going to put the 90-degree pick on the left-hand side of that. We're going to push it all the way to the right. Once we're to the right, we're going to rotate the 90-degree pick to pry that spring bar towards us. So put your finger on this area right here with light pressure. Go into the mag well. We're on the left-hand side of the spring bar. We're also going to go as high up on the spring bar as possible. Now we're going to push to the right and then rotate out. You can see how the spring bar came out. Now what I do is I put the 90-degree pick behind it like this, just to have the spring bar away from the magazine release assembly. Okay, and you can see as I'm pushing it, I can take that magazine release assembly out like this. I might have to rotate it like that. And there you go. Now we're going to install the magazine release assembly. So the button is on the right hand side. So what we do is we go with our 90-degree pick, go inside the mag well, and then what we're doing is we're putting that 90-degree pick behind the spring bar like that. Again, you don't want to pull it too hard towards you. You just want to put a little bit of pressure so it gives us an area where we can slide this magazine release assembly through. So we're going to make sure that the side with the lines is going to be on the right hand side. So that goes in first through this hole. Okay, so it goes in like this. You can see it's going to go like that so you can get around the spring bar. And then you're going to push that magazine release assembly through the hole on the other side, just like that. Now you can release your 90-degree pick on the spring bar. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the 90-degree pick on the right-hand side of the spring bar, and we're going to push it all the way to the left, and then it should automatically push itself forward and lock itself in. Take our 90-degree pick, push it to the left. Boom, you heard it go in, and it automatically locked itself in. Now, at this point, if it didn't automatically go all the way in, like if it didn't go all the way forward and then lock itself in place, this is where you would take your small screwdriver, you would go in and you would just place it on this part of the spring bar, and you would just give it light pressure pushing this way, and it should automatically lock itself in place. I got lucky and didn't have to do that. And there you go. You have successfully set up your magazine release button for a left-handed user. I hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.